Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled The Scapegoat. And of course, I'm referring to signs and symbols rule our world. Yes. And no better than Easter Sunday than to discuss one of the greatest scapegoats in the history of mankind, Jesus of Nazareth. Was he not betrayed by Judas of Iscariot? Right. And Jesus was 33 years old, which is the highest level of the pyramid, the obelisk, the people who can elocute and public speak. Jesus was betrayed by Judas, who allegedly was 27 years old. 27 is 999 in Gematria. 999 means meta. Uh, Meta means death in Hebrew. That's right. And Jesus was Jewish, and he's allegedly called the King of the Jews, right? And he was arrested and brought to trial and convicted on perjured testimony, which is allowed under maritime law. It's called judicial notice, where we take a falsehood and deem it to be a truthful fact. Remember, the law requires facts, not assumptions, right? But when you can make up perjured testimony and you can make up fake murder weapons, then really anything goes in a kangaroo court, which is maritime law, which is Roman tribunal court, Roman authority, which today is referred to in the juxtaposition world now as Swiss bank authority. In other words, the golden rule is whoever controls the gold rules. The gold being cryptocurrency, central bank digital currency, fiat, fake money worldwide, gold, silver, commodities, oil commodities, tin, magnesium, aluminum, corn, opium, processed opium, heroin. The Swiss Bank Authority controls the prices of all commodities and all energy prices and all derivatives of all commodity prices. All right. Now, the greatest scapegoat of all time remains Jesus of Nazareth. And he was 33 years old. If you were wondering what it was that they eventually convicted him of, I mean, he was accused of the Jimmy Hoffa assassination, disappearance. He was accused of the John Kennedy murder. I think he was accused of the Zodiac killings. However, he was convicted of blasphemy and most importantly, sedition. Sedition, which, in case you don't know, is interpreted as treason. Sedition is when you give public speeches without a permit and you incite public people to into an anarchy type state where they no longer trust the centralized authority, Roman authority, Swiss bank authority. And the blasphemy charge really was a result of Jesus' stories and allegations of him booting out the merchants of exchange that were using the holy temples, which were reserved for the worship of God. And instead, they're conducting business, money exchange, banking transactions in and around the temple. And Jesus objected to that as the King of the Jews, as he was allegedly referred to by the crowds. So you have a situation where we have an individual who's inciting many other people to distrust the government. It sounds to me like it's the juxtaposition one channel 2.0, right? It's what I do on my channel. I have nothing but contempt. I have nothing but distrust for banking authority, which is the number one enemy of the people of humanity. The post-humanity system is being driven by Switzerland under Swiss bank funding, which is in the trillions of dollars. Every year, they're spending trillions of dollars of going to the AI, human augmentation, destruction of humanity, promoting manic episodes, heart attacks, aluminum, graphene, and polymers into people, disabling their tenets of thinking, their cognition, under a cognitive warfare doctrine called net centric warfare. But being told to you, the public, as point of care medicine, precision medicine, they refer to it as neuromodulation, they look at it as cancer curing. It's not. It's a weapon system specifically designed to trace, track, and target all dairy cows on the farm, milk you at night under the harvesting program. Harvesting, check it out, look it up. They can reverse engines. They can send you dreams under computer to brain interface, and they can reverse it by sucking the life energy out of your body area network. Since every person, vaccinated and unvaccinated, is tethered to the cloud as a walking hard drive or antenna, just like your mobile phone is tethered to the cloud and your wireless router in your home and your television set, your LED lights, your neighbor's ring camera, the smart meter attached to your house or on the sidewalk, the LED street lights. And so you got ring camera, drones in the sky, LED lights, headlights, tail lights, street lights, your wireless router in your home, your cell phone, all things tethering you to the cloud using molecular engineering neuromodulation. All right. So, anyway, Jesus was arrested, arraigned, and then convicted of blasphemy and sedition. Really, the threat against Roman authority, and most importantly, the um, the threat against the temple worshippers who are bankers and merchants of exchange, the College of Corporations. They wanted this guy gone because he's trouble, right? But he's 33 years old and we're going to make an example out of him. So he was sentenced to crucifixion, which is a capital punishment reserved for political rebels, which Jesus was a political rebel, and or bank robber or highway robber, criminals. But I think it's fair to say that Jesus was not a criminal; he was a political anarchist, right? And Roman authority knows what to do with them, right? Today, we have many big lies foisted upon our clueless people. Climate change, which is interpreted as climate action, which every city council and every board of supervisors for every county in the world is activating climate action policies, which is the rollout and deployment of net centric warfare. Net centric warfare includes strategic hamlets, secured corridors. It means travel restrictions. It means 24/7 trace and tracking. It means fusion centers. And it means molecular engineering tethered to the cloud for all living creatures within a mapped hunger zone, otherwise known as strategic hamlet. The next big lie is that there's a global pandemic potential. We had the so-called coronavirus, which they flipped into the certification of vaccine identity artificial intelligence hoax to just, again, get people hooked up to the internet using hyper induction of graphene and aluminum and polymers in the form of a hoax vaccine. There was no such vaccine. There's no such thing as COVID. There's no such thing as coronavirus. What there is radiation poisoning, acute toxicity known as the Havana syndrome. That'll give you nausea. That'll give you spatial confusion. That'll make you feel exhausted and fatigued. That is Havana syndrome. That is radiation poisoning. We have that. I admit we have that. That's real, but your doctor isn't paid a reimbursement for that. So your doctor will call it COVID because they do have a reimbursement code for COVID. So the reason it's COVID is because COVID pays. COVID pays by your insurance or Medicare being the dominant payer of illness in America. So it has to be COVID because otherwise people won't get paid. All right. They also blame all our problems on communism, right? Benito Mussolini, he was killed by a communist. He's a fascist, right? And, Benito Mussolini is really a very educational type person to look at because he is a fascist. And he was on his way to Liechtenstein when he was intercepted by a private paid assassin with a military officer status, colonel, And the guy was not a colonel and he wasn't in the army. He's a professional murderer. And I think it was about age 35, killing the age 61, 62 Benito Mussolini and his 29-year-old girlfriend, who was 33 years younger than him, right? 33, the highest level within the cult. That's the age gap between Benito Mussolini and Clara Bataki, his girlfriend. It's the same gap that the age of Jesus Christ, age 33. Right. So don't you find it symbolic that Jesus was killed at age 33 and he was betrayed by Judas of Iscariot, who was 27, 999, metadad in Hebrew? And don't you think it's ironic that Benito Mussolini's girlfriend was 33 years younger than him? He's 62 and she's 29. That's 33. All right. And there were 12 apostles. 12 apostles is 33, 33, right? So 6, 6 is a 12, and a 6 is a 33. So we have 12 apostles, and of the 12 apostles, one prayed and committed perjury to ensure capital punishment and crucifixion for Jesus. All right. Well, since we've covered the big ones first, let me show you some lesser scapegoats. Jesus Christ being a scapegoat for anarchy, and Charlie Manson being a scapegoat for Swiss bank Gladio killers, military killers of bank and Hollywood entertainment um, operatives working in Los Angeles. Lena LaBianca was doing the banking on behalf of the Straight Satan's Motorcycle Club, which deals in weapons trafficking and drug trafficking for the San Fernando Valley and the greater Los Angeles basin, mainly the Los Angeles basin. They do have other motorcycle groups in the San Fernando Valley. Lena was primarily handling the Straight Satans, which would be Beverly Hills, Pacific Palisades, Hollywood, West and East, downtown, Long Beach, San Pedro, Venice, Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach, Santa Monica, Marina Del Rey, on out to Glendale. It's being handled on 5 grocery stores and a produce brokerage business. And he was killed because he quit. He quit his job. Same problem for Abigail Folger, who's working on political aspects of anthropology. She's working on the Robert Francis Kennedy campaign in New York. When he was murdered, she was brought out to work on the Tom Bradley, first black mayor of Los Angeles campaign when she was killed. Because you know what? She quit too. She quit. And you can't quit. You can't. It's not a job you quit. It's for life. The only way you can get out of your job is to be dead. So that's what they did. Sharon Tate, she's pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and she wants to have her baby. So she's not signing her renewal on her contract. She's 6.5 years into a 7-year contract. She hasn't signed. So they killed her and made a big example of all three of those people to the replacements because they're all replaced. Everyone's replaceable. So in the case of the Manson, there is no Manson. The guy's name is No Name Maddox. So if you want to call him something on his birth certificate, his name is Maddox. There's no Manson family. There's no cult. That was all made up for television and fake phony books and magazines. But there was no Charlie Manson, and there is no Manson family, and no one that is associated with Leslie Van Houten or Charlie Manson or Charlie Watson. None of them killed anybody. Patricia Krenwinkel, Susan Atkins, they didn't murder a fly. They didn't step on a cockroach. But anyway, they were all sent to the gas chamber. Then we have John Linley Frazier. He was convicted of murdering, I believe, 5 people in Santa Cruz County in Soquel. The Victor Oda family, his wife Virginia, his 2 sons, Travis and Taggart, and his loyal secretary, Dorothy Cadwallader, all shot in the back of the head and then thrown in the swimming pool, along with the kitty cat. So you had 5 humans and 1 kitty cat murdered in a swimming pool in a Frank Lloyd Wright custom home on a dead end cul-de-sac on 999 North Rodeo Gulch Road in Santa Cruz County. I'm kidding you not. The address is 999 North Rodeo Gulch Road, which means dead in Hebrew, just like Jesus Christ betrayed by Judas of Iscariot, 999, age 27, Judas, who committed perjury, allegedly. All right, then we have Bud Abbott, whose real name is Barton Bud Abbott, and he was sent to the gas chamber at age 30. He was 28 years old when Stephanie Bryan was disappeared for a couple months and then found dead, buried on Bud Abbott's wife's father's cabin, located about 6 hours north of Berkeley, California. Anyway, I don't believe that Bud Abbott committed that crime. I don't think he was involved in the abduction nor her murder because I think it took a team of a minimum of 3 to 6 men to do that job. And not to mention to drive 12 hours, again, marathon driving distances, and to dispose of the body. It's not that hard to plant evidence. There was some evidence planted to incriminate Bud Abbott, but there's no witnesses. There's no eyewitnesses to any of this stuff. So I wouldn't have sent the guy to the gas chamber. And he was arrested, arraigned, and convicted within 9 months of the discovery of Stephanie Bryan's body. I mean, talk about Operation Warp Speed. To send a guy to the gas chamber in 9 months, that's just I think that's a world's record. All right, so anyway, we have the murder of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. That was blamed on Lee Harvey Oswald. Brought to you by the Columbia Broadcasting System, the evil, unblinking eye, left eye of Horus, and that John Kennedy's right eye was shot out, leaving the left eye of Horus. So in a new Helvetia park known as George Dealey Plaza with a Swiss obelisk at the corner of Houston and Main Street, and the shooters shot over the Main Street on the railroad trestle, and they used silencer suppressors, so no one heard the gunshots that hit Jack Kennedy's voice box and his right eyeball. There was no sound made to do that. Then there were lots of other sounds to create diversionary effects, right? So does anyone really believe that Lee Oswald, acting alone by himself, did it? Like he can control the Secret Service, he can control J. Edgar Hoover, he can control Clyde Tolson, two gay lovers of the FBI, and he can control Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather so that they'll lie or pants on fire on national television. Do you think that Lee Oswald could do that? All right. Then we have Martin Luther King. Next, he was killed allegedly by the scapegoat James Earl Ray, who most definitely is innocent. Then we had, quick like a bunny rabbit, just 2 months later, we had the murder of Robert Francis Kennedy on Wilshire Boulevard at the Ambassador Hotel. That was blamed on Sirhan Sirhan, who most definitely did not shoot Robert Kennedy. And so there are 3 scapegoats there: Lee Oswald and James Earl Ray and Sirhan Sirhan. And then I got the Manson family, which I think I got 5 people there. I got Charlie Manson, Charlie Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Von Hotten. That's 5 scapegoats associated with the murders of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, which are military done by a military bayonet weapon. And hey, if you're going to use NATO weapons, don't try to tell me they're kitchen knives, okay? Um, we have Zodiac. They blame that on a mythical creature named Zodiac, right? And there's been no arrest, no arraignment, no conviction. There were 7 Zodiac crimes, 5 of whom there were 7 victims, 5 of them died. The ones that died are all daughters of military officers in the United States Army and Navy and State Department. The one exception is Paul Stein, who works for the Haight-Ashbury Project, which is military army intelligence in San Francisco. He was the cab driver, the yellow cab, like the yellow school bus that Kamala Harris likes so much. We have the yellow cab. Anyway, what I'm telling you is that Paul Stein was an operative within military intelligence San Francisco, and the cab was his cover. The cab was the cover story. That's not his real job. All right. So Jim Jones of People's Temple, and then the media called the compound on Union Carbide property in British Guiana, British intelligence property. They called it Jonestown, but the sign reads People's Temple Agricultural Project. It's funny how the media misreports the news. So we had a situation where we blamed Jim Jones for the hundreds of deaths, which were by bayonet and AR-15 rifle mostly. The children were killed by the flavor aid. There was no Kool-Aid at Jonestown. There's no Jonestown at Jonestown. There's Union Carbide property on British Guiana controlled by British intelligence forces, and that only the children were poisoned using the flavor aid. All right. Then, besides that, you have the situation where, I mean, there's so many to choose from, right? So you have, we blame communists for Vietnam War. That's a minimum of 10-year war. It's actually much longer when you include the French and the Australians and the other people who wanted to get the opium in Burma. But the thing is that it's at least from 1964 into 1975, you have a war that's based upon a false flag non-event in the Gulf of Tonkin with the USS Maddox, where some fishing boats, wooden fishing boats, allegedly attacked the United States Navy destroyer, but didn't kill anyone, didn't injure anyone, didn't even scratch the paint on the hull. And then we went on to kill 1.5 million Vietnamese and 55,000 clueless Americans died, not to mention people who were injured and amputated limbs. So there you go again. We have a situation where the scapegoat is communism, communism, communism. The media likes to use words like it's the insurgents, it's domestic terrorists did it. Timothy McVeigh is a domestic terrorist. Juxtaposition might be one. When the reality, it's the fascists, and the fascists are led by all the private bankers. That's the number one fascist everywhere in the world. In Zurich, in Basel, in Zug, in Geneva, Switzerland, in Lugano, Switzerland. It's the bankers. They wear $20,000 suits, $10,000 shoes, which are typically Italian shoes. And you should know that there are no communists anywhere to be found in the world. There's no Democrats or Republicans that can be found either. There's no such thing as MAGA. There's no such thing as Build Back Better. There's the Masonic code of demolition, building a foundation, and then building an obelisk or a pyramid of power. In other words, demolition first, construction second. That's Build Back Better. But that's Masonic. That's not democratic. That's not conservative Christian values. We have Zorro Ranch, renamed Rancho de San Rafael. We have Little St. James Island. We have North Fox Island. We have Blue Bay Boys Camp. We've got Ronald Reagan Ranch, Cielo de Rancho. We have Rancho del Cielo. We have the Neverland Ranch on Mount Figueroa Road for Michael Jackson. We have the Jane Fonda Laurel Springs Ranch, which is walking distance from the Ronald Reagan Ranch. And all of those are places to molest children. But we want to blame that on Jeffrey Epstein. Even though he's not involved with the Ronald Reagan Ranch, he's not involved with the Neverland Ranch, he's not involved with Laurel Springs, but it doesn't matter because it serves the purpose. And what is the purpose of the scapegoat? Let me read to you the symbolic relevance of the scapegoat. The spiritual meaning of the scapegoat. The scapegoat symbolizes a transfer of guilt and the restoration of harmony within a community or society. It represents themes of purification, redemption, and personal responsibility. The scapegoat is chosen to carry out the sins and the transgressions of other people, thus serving as a vessel for the release of guilt and the restoration of harmony. This ancient archetype has been woven into the fabric of our human history, which spans across civilizations and religions, each of its own unique interpretation and ritualistic practices. The scapegoat carries a profound symbolism that transcends its literal meaning, representing the transfer of guilt, blame, or negative energy onto an external entity, whether it be an individual or an animal or a symbolic object, like the Moloch owl at the Bohemian Grove, or an obelisk, or a burning fire in front of an obelisk. The act of scapegoating allows a community or an individual to cleanse themselves of their own sins and shortcomings, and then provides a means of collective cleansing and personal responsibility. See, it's signs and symbols and rituals rule our world, right? And that's why it's important to have Lee Harvey Oswald, and that's why it's important to have Charlie Manson for fundamental mendacities that will span more than 100 years' time. And that's why it's important to have the Jesus Christ story at Easter, where we celebrate the crucifixion and burial of Jesus and his resurrection on Easter Sunday, right? That's the point. That's the point of the Jesus story. He's 33 years old, the highest level in the pyramid of power of the obelisk. And he was sacrificed in a ritual barbaric crucifixion. But so was Bud Abbott, and so was Jim Jones, shot in the back of the head by an AR-15 rifle. It's not a suicide. Look at all the people who are sacrificed. Abigail Folger, Lino LaBianca, Sharon Tate, Wojtek Frykowski, Tom Coomer, United States Navy, Harvey Milk, United States Navy, George Moscone. Um, who else got sacrificed? John F. Kennedy, Robert Francis Kennedy, all right, Martin Luther King, all right, they were all sacrificed. Some of them are scapegoats, all right. In the case of, Sirhan and Lee Oswald, they were scapegoats, but they were sacrificed and killed, were they not? William Colby, um, the list goes on. My goodness, even Susan Wojcicki, who banned me for life at YouTube, she died 1 year after she banned me for life. So she became a scapegoat for all the censorship at YouTube. It didn't get me reinstalled though. All right, well, anyway, that's my video for today. I hope you understand that the scapegoat is actually a ritualistic, symbolic tool within Swiss bank authority anthropology. The threats that are capital abuse are calling anyone who doesn't agree with the Ministry of Poppycock, the Ministry of Mendacity, the state's bald-faced lies about COVID, the bald-faced lies about the chemtrail dumpings, and human augmentation, turning humans into Frankenstein monsters and cyborgs. The lies and concealment of all that. Anyone like me who tells the truth about it is considered an anarchist and is considered a political rebel. Because no, I have no respect. I have no tolerance for anyone that's involved with politics. If you think you're going to run for governor, you're my enemy. Okay. You're my sworn enemy. I know you can make a profit running for governor in Colorado, but you're going to lose. But you can keep all the money that you bilk out of people who think you're going to make changes. Jesse Ventura didn't make any changes. Ronald Reagan didn't make any changes. Arnold Screw Your Freedom, steroid Schwarzenegger, he didn't make no changes. Okay. Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, Gavin Newsom, Jerry Moonbeam Brown, they promote the status quo. They read their cue cards. They do whatever Swiss bank authority tells them to do, which is nothing. Sit on your hands and we got this. Take care now. Do like and share my videos because, as you may imagine, because I'm a political rebel, I am heavily shadow banned. Bye now.